Early May 1940, Europe. Germany has been at war with Great Britain and France since the 3rd of September 1939. Yet along the Western Front, the conflict has remained strangely quiet. However, this fragile calm is about to collapse. On the 10th of May 1940, German forces launch a sudden and overwhelming offense into France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands, tearing through borders and defenses in a matter of days. Belgium and the Netherlands fall before the month is over, and between the 26th of May and the 4th of June 1940, more than 300,000 French and British soldiers are evacuated from the beaches near Dunkirk and carried across the English Channel to Great Britain. Paris, the French capital, falls to the Germans on the 14th of June 1940, and just 8 days later, the French delegation signs an armistice. To enforce their rule in occupied France, German authorities rely on local collaborators. Among them is a former national football hero, once captain of France, who will loot Jewish families, sell lives for cash, betray resistance fighters, and take part in executions. His name is Alexandre Villaplane. Alexandre Villaplane was born on the 24th of December 1904 in Algiers, then part of French Algeria. As a youngster, he moved to France with his parents, settling on the south coast where his football talent began to emerge at an early age. By the age of 17, Villaplane was playing for the French football club FC Set, where he quickly stood out as a strong yet technically refined centre-half, effective both in the air and with a ball at his feet. He soon gained attention as a rare combination of physical power and tactical intelligence, traits that were highly valued in the French game of the period. Villaplane became the first player of North African origin to represent France in international football, a distinction that marked him as an outsider who had forced his way into the national sporting elite. He benefited from the so-called amateur system that dominated French football before professionalism, as clubs quietly rewarded talent through fictitious employment. In 1927, Villaplane was lured away from Set by the sporting club Nîmois in the city of Nîmes, based in southern France, after being promised a well-paid job that required little actual work. He flourished in Nîmes, earning admiration for his relentless energy, tough tackling, and a reputation as one of the finest headers of the ball in the country. Villaplane won the first of his 25 caps for France against Belgium in 1926, establishing himself as a fixture in the national side. He reached the height of his sporting career in 1930, when he was appointed captain of the French national team ahead of the inaugural FIFA World Cup in Uruguay. Leading France onto the pitch against Mexico in Montevideo, Villaplane later described the occasion as the happiest day of his life. He was, at that moment, one of the most recognizable and celebrated footballers in the country. Villaplane's lifestyle, however, was already attracting attention away from the pitch. He joined Racing Club de France in 1929 and made little effort to conceal the wealth he was accumulating, frequenting bars, cabarets, and above all, horse racing tracks. When professionalism was legalized in 1932, Villaplane signed for the football club Antibes, who were attempting to establish themselves among the elite. He played a role in their championship success, but when the decisive match was exposed as fixed, Antibes was stripped of the title. Villaplane, who was strongly suspected of fixing the matches, received only a small penalty. However, his reputation never recovered, and by 1935, his football career was effectively over as he ended the season in prison, having been sentenced for his part in a horse race fixing scandal. The Second World War started on the 1st of September 1939, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. The Battle of France began on the 10th of May 1940, and on the 22nd of June of the same year, the armistice at Compiègne was signed by France and Germany. After the German occupation of France, Villaplane quickly became active in the Paris black market, dealing in stolen goods and extorting Jewish families and gold merchants. In 1940, he was arrested for possession of stolen property and sentenced to 2 months in prison. Soon after his release, Villaplane became involved with the French Carlingue, a criminal organization created by the German Reich Security Main Office to combat the French resistance, and widely known as the French Gestapo, the Nazi secret police. Operating from its headquarters at 93 Rue Lauriston in Paris, the group carried out arrests, extortion, and torture on behalf of the occupiers under the leadership of 2 Parisian gangsters, Henri Lafont and Pierre Bonny. Villaplane became useful to the organization through gold smuggling and the systematic seizure of Jewish property, enriching himself while assisting German security services. In 1942, he left Paris for Toulouse to escape the Germans. His former teammate, Louis Cazal, obtained new identity papers for him, and Villaplane returned to Paris. He was arrested by the SS in 1943 for the theft of a quantity of precious stones and imprisoned at the Compiègne camp, north of Paris, a detention site for resistance suspects and political prisoners. Villaplane was released after the aforementioned Parisian gangster Henri Lafont intervened and continued to collaborate with the Nazis. In early 1944, Villaplane was placed in a position of direct command and became head of one of the 5 sections of the Brigade Nord-Africaine, a mercenary force composed largely of North African recruits tasked with crushing resistance in southwestern France. He received the uniform and rank of SS-Untersturmführer, equivalent to a second lieutenant in the US Army. Villaplane's unit was assigned to the Dordogne area in southwestern France, where resistance activity had intensified during the spring of 1944. He directed operations aimed at identifying and arresting resistance members and their supporters, using beatings, threats, and violence to extract information. His men quickly gained a reputation for extreme brutality, earning Villaplane the nickname SS Mohammed among local civilians. In March 1944, his section was formally tasked with hunting resistance networks in the Périgueux area and was redeployed the following month to the region around the town of Yme. It was there that Villaplane negotiated the fate of more than 50 hostages, offering survival in exchange for large sums of money. Victims were told they faced execution unless he intervened, while he demanded payment knowing that many would be killed anyway. During these negotiations, Villaplane told his victims, "They're going to kill you, but I'll save you, risking my life. I've saved 54, you'll be the 55th. That'll be 400,000 francs." Those who could not pay were handed over to the Brigade Nord-Africaine, where torture and execution usually followed. Early in 1944, during operations in the Périgueux area, Villaplane personally led a raid on the home of Geneviève Léonard, a 59-year-old mother of 6 accused of hiding a Jew. Acting on a tip from the Gestapo, Villaplane arrived with 3 men from the Brigade Nord-Africaine and burst into the house without warning. Furniture was overturned and possessions thrown aside as the rooms were ransacked. Villaplane grabbed Léonard by the hair, dragged her across the room, and shouted, "Where is your Jew?" She refused to answer. Villaplane then dragged her outside and toward a neighboring farm, beating her repeatedly with the butt of his rifle as she stumbled along the way. Inside the farm building, Villaplane forced her to watch as 2 peasants were brought in by his men. They were beaten, tortured, and doused with fuel before being set on fire. When the flames died down, both men were machine-gunned at close range, Villaplane laughed loudly as the killings took place. While the bodies were still smoking, other members of the unit brought in the Jewish man they had been searching for, named Antoine Bachmann. Villaplane punched him, had him arrested, then turned to Geneviève Léonard and asked for 200,000 francs in exchange for her life. The violence soon extended beyond individual victims, as Villaplane's unit began carrying out executions in the open. On the 11th of June 1944, one day after the massacre at Oradour-sur-Glane, his unit carried out the execution of 52 people in the town of Mussidan, and witnesses later stated that Villaplane himself was involved in the executions. On the 6th of June 1944, under the code name Operation Overlord, US, British, and Canadian troops crossed the English Channel and began landing on the Normandy coast in France. The invasion marked the beginning of the end for German rule in Western Europe, opening a second front that the Nazis could no longer contain. In the weeks that followed, Allied forces pushed inland through fierce resistance, while collaborationist units across France responded with increasing violence, desperate to crush resistance before German power collapsed entirely. In August 1944, with Allied forces closing in, Parisians rose up. Troops from the French army, more than half of them African, arrived to complete the liberation of the French capital. Reprisals against suspected collaborators were swift and bloody. The leaders of the French Gestapo were not lynched, however. They were tracked down and put on trial. Villaplane was arrested during the liberation of Paris on the 24th of August 1944 and was sentenced to death on the 12th of December for high treason, collaboration with the enemy, murder, and acts of barbarity. Alexandre Villaplane was executed by a firing squad 3 days after his 40th birthday on the 27th of December 1944 at 10:15 a.m. at Fort de Montrouge on the outskirts of Paris, together with Pierre Bonny, Henri Lafont, and 5 other condemned men. Just before the execution, Lafont turned to Villaplane and whispered, "You won't be able to save this penalty," forgetting that Villaplane was not a goalkeeper.
Thanks for watching the World History channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.